What's up guys, Mark here at Lone University. Welcome to lesson 99, one away from 100, which is pretty crazy for me. I don't know where the time has gone, but this is lesson 99, advanced lesson. We're going to be talking about non-diatonic modal options for soloing. Now we've kind of talked about this in some of the Q&A videos. This has been asked as a question more than once. Definitely wanted to make a full video sort of encompassing the theory behind what I'm doing here. And this is really sort of a jazz theory type thing where you're playing notes that are not technically in the suggested key, and this allows you to add more color and just a different sound to your solos than just the standard minor and major pentatonics that can get sounding really predictable and old after a while. If you're going to play an out-of-key note, you have to have a reason for doing it. I'll make the analogy, if you're out of class in high school and you're not supposed to be and the principal catches you, if you have a good reason, you won't get in trouble, but if you don't have a reason, then you're wrong. So I kind of apply that same thing to taking a solo. Now, basing off the Q&A question that's been asked, which is, I'm going to kind of paraphrase here, how do I know what modes to use over a given chord? What modes can I use over a given chord? If I'm on a C minor chord, what scales can I use? So here's where we're at. This is backing track number 4 out of the library I'm going to be using. So I'm going to go ahead and listen to this again. I'm going to play along and I'm going to kind of tell you the chords. It's only a 12-bar repeat. And once we do that, then we'll kind of outline what I'm doing here from a theory standpoint. So let's go through and talk about what chords are being used here. Let's listen to it real quick. So start off on C minor. 3. 4 bars of C minor, then to F minor. Now to G major. G major, back to C minor. Same phrase repeats. 4 bars of C minor, 2 of F minor, 2 of G major. Back to C. So that's the chart for this track. We're using just a little segment from it. So now here's the thing that gets kind of tricky. If you're playing over a certain chord in an ensemble or a backing track or a song or whatever application you're using, you have to be aware of what notes are being played by other instruments in the band. So for a more simple configuration like this, where in this track, this is one of our baseless backing tracks of our library, this is just guitar and drums. So the only melodic instrument playing anything right now is the guitar. And these are all minor chords except for the 2 G majors at the end. So if we're in the C minor part of it, 4 bars of C minor, all the guitar player is playing is a C minor chord. So if you know how to break chords down, this is an advanced lesson, so I'm assuming you know this. I'm going to kind of gloss over some of the real basic theory here. If that guitar player is playing C minor, root 3rd and 5th, those are the only notes occurring at that time. So what key this track actually is in is really irrelevant to what we're going to be talking about here. So if all he's playing is those 3 notes, and he kind of does some different arpeggiations, but it's all C minor based. So if we're going to take that C minor arpeggio, let's go ahead and play that together. Let's just alternate that. And I want you to look down at this pattern. When you play this, now visualizing that pattern, I want you to think about all the modal scales you know. All the regular modal scales. Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. All 7 of them. And when you visualize the patterns of those modes, I want you to look down while you play the C minor arpeggio and think about what modal scales have these 3 notes in it. If I was going to play all 7 modal scales starting on C, which we have a video on that too, memorizing the modal scale by pattern. If we're going to play all of the modal scales starting on C, what modal scales have those 3 notes in it? So what shape does that arpeggio fit in each of the modal scales? Let's go through and see. Okay, let's play a C Ionian. Well, that doesn't work because it's a major based one. This is minor. Let's try Dorian. That works. That has C, E flat, and G, and the Dorian scale does too, C Dorian. Okay, so that mode works, and I'll explain why here in a minute. Let's try Phrygian. That mode contains these three notes as well. So C Phrygian works. Let's try C Lydian. That's a major based one, and how I know that's because the third is major. So if you're in a minor chord, sort of a shortcut is you can go through these modes and go, which ones are the minor based modes, which is Dorian, Phrygian, Aeolian, and Locrian, or you could take the major based modes, which are Ionian, Lydian, and Mixolydian. There's only three. And you just know simply by what the third is. If the third is major, it's a major based mode. If the third is minor, it's a minor based mode. Okay, so let's try Mixolydian. Nope. Major based mode. Let's try Aeolian. Well, of course that one works because that's the actual correct mode for this, since this is in C minor. Okay, let's try Locrian. That's close, but the fifth is flat, so that doesn't work. So to sum this up, what modal scales are compatible with just a normal C minor chord? In other words, what modes do these three notes fit in? We have C Aeolian, C Dorian, and C Phrygian. So let's talk about the suggested key for this for a moment. So if this chord progression is in C minor, we kind of start off with the C minor shape, goes to an F minor, and then for a second it goes to G major. We know that this is actually in the key of C minor because if you take the notes of the F minor chord, F, C, A flat, and you take the notes of the C minor chord, C, G, C, E flat, that's pretty much around a C minor key signature. Three flats, which is in the key of E flat major. We have A flat, B flat, and E flat. So if you took the diatonic mode for the key of C minor, that would obviously be C Aeolian. So technically that's the only mode you would really want to use for that. But here's the sort of jazz theory part where there's kind of some leniency in the rules. If no one else in the band is playing anything other than these three notes, then technically the other four notes of a normal diatonic 7-note scale are unaccounted for. All we have is C, we have E flat, we have G. So the A, the B flat, the D, and the F, no one really knows if they're sharp or flat because no one's playing them. They're not being represented. So you can come in as a soloist and play those out-of-key notes and it's not going to clash with anyone. So therefore it will work. And this transcends just a guitar player by himself. Let's say I have a bunch of people in the band. Let's say there's a guitar player doing this, and a keyboard player playing this, and some backup horn or second guitar parts also playing C minor. It doesn't matter if there's one person in the ensemble or 20 people in the ensemble. If everyone is just playing these three notes, then all the other notes are free game. And technically you're playing out-of-key notes, but that's how a soloist can add some flavor. So when you just play a C minor solo, it sounds really predictable. So this is a way to add some color to your solos, and you're technically going out of key, but you're doing it in a very methodical way. I'm playing modal scales that are very close to C minor, but they may be one or two notes different. And those one or two notes are things you can kind of put as highlight points in your solo to give it some tension. So I'm going to play along with this track again, and for the first repeat I'm just going to use normal C minor Aeolian scale. C minor pentatonic, C Aeolian. It's going to sound very predictable and it's going to sound safe. That's playing it safe, is when you only use the diatonic modes for that chord. And then when it goes two repeats in, this whole little loop is just two repeats of the progression. On the second repeat I'm going to start using a mixture of C Phrygian and C Dorian. And the note differences are very subtle, but I can kind of highlight those notes once again and add some just different flavor to it. It sounds out of key, but it works. And the reason it works is because no one else is playing it and I'm not clashing with anyone. The note is just clashing with the chord, which is a really cool thing to do in jazz solos. So let's listen. First repeat, all playing it safe with C minor and C Aeolian. Second repeat, I'm going to mix C Phrygian and C Dorian and kind of use some of those out of key notes to my advantage to add some color. Let's listen. Here we go. So you can kind of hear on that first repeat, it sounds like I'm just kind of running a C minor scale. Second repeat, I kind of focus on those out of key notes. When I was in C, I played around with the C Dorian. I guess I didn't really touch Phrygian in that one, so I'll go back and do that again. I got carried away with the Dorian soloing, and getting carried away happens when you solo. So I played a C Dorian instead of a C Aeolian. So we kind of had that sharp 6 back to an A natural. You can kind of hear that note. It really sticks out, and it kind of just gives a different tonality. And when you do these type of notes, you'll realize that the only difference between a C Dorian and a C Aeolian is one note. It's either an A flat in the Aeolian mode, or it's an A natural in the Dorian mode. So we're not making huge changes here. And so because we're not making huge changes, you want to really focus on those difference of notes. So if there's only one note difference, you want to really make that like a pinnacle of your solo. Okay? Same with Phrygian. The only difference is the flat 2 or the normal 2. Okay? And you want to focus on those notes and that makes them stand out. Now when it goes to F minor, the same things apply. I'm just now in F minor. So instead of using F Aeolian, I can use F Dorian. I want to focus on that note. And the really cool thing about it is when it goes to the G major chord, that raised 6 in the F Dorian is now the 5th of G major, so I can hang on that note. And it's kind of like common note soloing. This one note from another chord, when you change chords, if you stay on that note, it becomes a different interval on that next chord. That's a really good way to make your solo sound very seamless and just sound cohesive. So let's try it again. I'm going to do the same thing, just give you a different example. First repeat, all C minor. Second repeat, we're going to try to mix Phrygian in this time. You can kind of hear what I'm talking about. And I'm also going to use F Dorian. Let's take a listen. C Dorian. F Dorian. Kind of end with the C Phrygian there, and you hear what I'm talking about. So those out of key notes, focus on them and kind of play around with the common notes those two modes share. And again, just make those out of key notes your pinnacle, and that's what a good soloist does. And the reason you want to do that, I'm under the weather still. Crazy allergies here, so excuse me for that. But the thing is if you kind of hit that out of key note and you jump away from it real quick, to a listener that sounds like you're playing a wrong note. That's what it actually is. It's an actual wrong note, you know, going against the actual suggested key of the song. But when you play wrong notes more than once, they become right notes. It's something I learned from Victor Wooten, hearing him give a speech at one of his classes at the Warwick camp. There's no such thing as wrong notes. It's how you perceive them to be right or wrong notes. And I'm kind of paraphrasing what he says, but that's sort of his motto. So technically this A natural is a wrong note, but if I kind of hang on it, it works. Now I'd use some C Phrygian. Look at the chord you're on If it's minor, you know you're probably going to have 4 modal options since there's only 4 minor-based modes and there's 3 major-based modes. So that's the first thing you want to do. If you're on just an A minor 7, for instance, that's what you have to work with. So you can look at that. Well, the Aeolian has a flat 7, so does the Dorian, so does the Phrygian. So once again, all those 3 same modal options work. And you just want to look at the notes of any chord and go through all the modes and see what modes have all 4 of those notes, and those modes are free game. Now, it gets complicated when the chord has more notes. We've talked about this in those modal videos too. The more notes a chord has, the less options you have. Think about how many modal scales just share a 1 and a 5. Just a C and a G. Well, 6 out of the 7 modes, work with those 2 notes. The only one that doesn't is the one with the flat 5. But if I have a chord with, 5 or 6 notes in it, it's going to be very limited to just that chord. So this is all just dependent. But most of the time, you take solos, you're playing music, chords are traditionally less complex unless you're playing a lot of just advanced jazz stuff. So more often than not, you can pull this trick out and get some nice, tasteful color in your solos. Have fun with it. We'll see you next time.